am here with commentator and author Sherry Sufi to talk about his wonderful new book called Australia on Trial, Accusations and Defence. Sherry, it's fabulous to have you. Now, in this case, in this book, you make the case that Australia, despite all the accusations, is not a racist country and not built on stolen land. So what's the basis of your case?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show, Daisy. It's good to be with you again. Look, the basis for the claim is that if you look back at the history of civilization, everyone, everywhere in the world that had the means to conquer lands did so. Whoever had the means to basically centralise resources and economic commodities did so. So civilizations that originate in Western Europe, Western Christendom, or specifically the Anglosphere, the English-speaking West, which is a large focus of my book, they are not unique in trying to conquer as much territory as they possibly could. It just happens to be the case that, regimes that originate in Western Europe have played that game better than a lot of their civilizational rivals, particularly in the last 5 centuries or so, since Columbus left Europe to reach America and so forth. So I take great issue with people who try and sort of guilt trip Western countries, specifically Anglo-Celtic countries like Canada, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, and so forth, into thinking that their case is a unique case of land theft. And the last point I'll make is there is a sense of moral obligation on us as proud patriotic Australians to push back against these ideas. Because if the intellectual elites get into their echo chambers, where majority of the people have come to this view that the colonisation of Australia and New Zealand and other Anglo-Saxon countries in the colonised sphere was illegitimate, that's not the end of the conversation. It doesn't stop. They then try and develop a policy to set things right. And one such policy is something we saw last year in the Voice referendum, and I'm glad that the Australian public was able to see through that and defeat it.
Yeah, I mean, that is fantastic, as you say, that the referendum was defeated, because I always thought the idea of conferring extra rights onto a group of people because they are of a particular ethnicity was actually very racist, so it was a racist idea in its essence. But it is, a lot of people would say it's a very controversial argument you're making, a lot of noisy people on the left. So have you received much backlash since you've launched the book?
Not really. The book has been promoted fairly widely across multiple social media channels, and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. And that's not necessarily because it's being promoted inside conservative echo chambers. I can assure you, the book has been framed in a manner that is seeking to persuade the unpersuaded. Because look, you and I have both been involved in, conservative activism for a long time. And I agree that from time to time, we all have to get up in front of our support base and to give them hope and confidence and inspiration. That is important. But that's also not really effective advocacy. To advocate for a cause, you have to preach to the unconverted. And so the framing and the substance of the argument that I've presented in this book, if I can hold it up here.
Yeah, go for it.
Defence. It's been designed to appeal to people who call themselves progressive, who sit left of centre, who want to engage in the battle of ideas. So rather than arrogantly dismissing the things that they're talking about, I have tried to rebut their logic. Like the example I just gave you about, countries of the Anglosphere not being unique in their colonisation. Other civilisations have done it as well. So look, the feedback has actually been overwhelmingly positive.
That's really good to hear, because I think most Australians probably get sort of confused and a bit saddened by these claims that the country is racist. Because just before you go, I'll get a comment on this, but looking around, Australia's arguably the most successful multicultural or multiracial nation in the world, and anyone can see that looking around. So where do these people get off making these virulent claims that Australia is a racist nation?
Yeah, in fact, there was a survey published in The Australian the other day, which said that, which according to the findings, the bulk of the younger generation is being taught to believe that Australia is a fundamentally racist country. Now, look, racism as a phenomenon certainly cannot be denied. It does exist, as do other forms of discrimination against age or gender or sexual orientation and so forth. So race-based discrimination is certainly not unique. It's certainly not the only phenomenon. Now, at the individual level, you can have these problems across multiple societies, and Australia is not unique in that. But I would argue that we have far less of it than any other country that I can see through surveying those societies. And we've also done more to combat it. So we have less of it in the first place, and we've also done more to combat it. Now, the third point here, Daisy, is that we have millions of people, something like, we often get politicians sort of reminding us that, one in every 3 Australians or whatever is born overseas. Now, if that's actually true, ask yourself why that is. There are people from other parts of the world that have consciously made a decision to call Australia home. If we were such a fundamentally racist country, why would people continue to choose to call it home, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that is exactly right. If we were really that racist, then why would so many people from other countries come here? Look, Sherry, Sufi, it's been so great to have you on. Just before we go, please make sure you tell everyone where they can buy that book, because it looks like a great one.
Yes, certainly. So if you go to the Connor Court website, Connor Court Publishing, you can Google that. It'll come up. It's under the just published section, Australia on Trial, Accusations and Defence. And I'd love to engage with you in the battle of ideas, even if you disagree with what I'm trying to say.
Sherry, Sufi, you are a gem. We were talking off the air about the time we did that fun panel together on Western civilization at a conference years ago. My, how time flies. You're a fabulous intellect, a fabulous person, and we would love to have you back on the Daisy Cousins Show again very soon.
Thank you, Daisy. The pleasure's all mine.